Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today we have another Warhawk video, which means the American Civil War. This is probably the most excited anyone's ever been for the American Civil War. Battle of Pea Ridge, Part 1. This is Battle for Missouri. Glad you're here, of course, as always. Appreciate you. Pat on the back for you being here. Yeah, we're gonna run it. Let's jump into it. And make sure you hit that like button. Let's go. And must have St. Louis and Huzzah. I don't know if that's a city or if that was like, yeah, Huzzah. Major General Earl Van Dorn. Not sure which side he's on either. So, yeah.
March 1862. Much has changed in the Trans-Mississippi Theater since the Confederates' early victories at Wilson's Creek and Lexington. The Confederate strategy in Missouri is a simple one. Advance northward through the border state, defeat the Federal forces in their way, and capture the important city of St. Louis.
That was a Confederate Major General. Yeah, Missouri, Wilson's Creek was a disaster. But the Mississippi War has been easy for the Union because of their ability to use ironclads and other tactics. But I don't know. Let's see what happens.
This would gain the Confederates command over the Gateway of the West. Control of St. Louis, a major commercial and industrial center and notoriously pro-Union city, would symbolize Confederate control over the entire border state. It would also help propel the career of an ambitious Confederate Major General Earl Van Dorn, commander of the Army of the West. All that stands in Van Dorn's way are the outnumbered Union forces in Missouri from the Army of the Southwest, commanded by Brigadier General Samuel R. Curtis. Van Dorn begins to confidently look forward to a shower of accolades.
So they got pushed all the way down to northwest Missouri, Arkansas. Because they were in Wilson's Creek, which is like 100 miles into the border. Something like that.
Earl Van Dorn is an experienced Confederate officer. A West Point graduate, he had served with distinction during the Mexican War and had been wounded several times in battle. He had also fought Indians on the southwestern frontier. A nephew of President Andrew Jackson, he shared Old Hickory's famous temper and charming way with the ladies. Early in the war, Van Dorn had been summoned to Richmond by President Jefferson Davis and promoted to Major General, and given the task of winning back Missouri for the hard-pressed Confederates. The Western and Trans-Mississippi theaters had been a disaster for the Confederates in the winter months of 1861-62. Already, Union forces under Brigadier General Ulysses S. Grant had seized Forts Henry and Donelson in western Tennessee.
Pretty handily, too. And then you have the great job by Pope and Foote on the Mississippi.
And in doing so, has caused the evacuation of Nashville and the fall of Kentucky and most of Tennessee to Union control. Farther west, in Missouri, Confederate elation following their victory at Wilson's Creek had turned to despair as superior Federal forces had steadily pushed back Major General Sterling Price's outnumbered Missouri State Guard troops out of Missouri. By February 1862, the Confederates had been driven back to the Missouri-Arkansas border line. At Fayetteville, Arkansas, Major General Van Dorn assembles a force of some 16,000. Arkansas, Major General Van Dorn assembles a force of some 16,500 Confederates.
This is an army right here. I'm sure he's going to mention a lot of this, but you got a left side and a right wing. Okay.
Including 8,000 Texans under Brigadier General Benjamin McCulloch and 7,000 Missourians under Major General Price. These regular forces are augmented by a colorful contingent of 2,000 assorted Indians, principally Cherokees, led by the renowned frontiersman Brigadier General Albert Pike. Van Dorn eases the personal friction between Price and McCulloch. Their promising partnership at Wilson's Creek had quickly dissolved into competition for glory and promotion, and Van Dorn persuades them to cooperate in his bold plan to retake Missouri, capture St. Louis, and move east to link up with General Albert Sidney Johnston and fall on Grant's Union forces in Tennessee, pinning the Federals between them and bringing about a decisive Confederate victory in the Western Theater. Assembling his army of the West and convincing the other generals to go along with his plan, Van Dorn has already accomplished a significant feat. Moreover, the general seems to have luck on his side. His forces significantly outnumbers the 11,000 Union troops under Brigadier General Curtis, a fellow West Point graduate of no prior military distinction. However, Curtis is more renowned as a politician than a general. A former mayor of Keokuk, Iowa, he had served 3 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives prior to the war. Curtis's very success works against him. Following his comparatively easy victories over Price, demands has arisen for the transfer of Union forces from Missouri to other, more threatened theaters of war. To achieve his strategic goal of recapturing Missouri for the Confederacy, General Van Dorn plans for his units to move west of the Union forces, outflank them, cut their supply lines, and fall on them from behind.
Not bad. Like a reverse version of what happened at Wilson's Creek.
It is a smaller version of his grand scheme to cross the Mississippi to outmaneuver Grant in western Tennessee.
Ambitious.
Never one to delay, even though he is suffering from the aftereffects of flu or pneumonia. Van Dorn wastes no time heading north from Fayetteville. The Army of the West movement began on March 4th, following an obligatory address to the troops by the commanding general. A heavy snowfall occurs. Van Dorn himself is so racked with fever that he begins the journey lying in a wagon. The rugged terrain of the Boston Mountains add to the strain of the march. As the weather-hampered Confederates trudge through knee-deep snowdrifts and stinging cold winds, the Union Army of the Southwest under Brigadier General Curtis is moving to meet the approaching rebel threat. At Pea Ridge, a long hill 30 miles northeast of Fayetteville, Curtis consolidates his army and entrenches along Little Sugar Creek, which runs roughly parallel to the ridge. 2 miles to the southeast, he centers his federal operations at Elkhorn Tavern, a well-known watering hole at the eastern end of Pea Ridge. His right flank, the sector that General Van Dorn expects to turn, rests against Elkhorn Mountain and Pea Ridge. The Union position is sound, reflecting General Curtis's pre-war training as an engineer. The creek affords a natural defensive barrier for the Federals, and the mountains immediately to the west offer additional protection. To add to the
Nice little photo. That's might be hard to tell, but it gives a little bit of clarity of what we're looking like in terms of the environment.
Strength of their position, the Union troops are busily entrenching under the stern gaze of their formidable commander. As he comes upon the Federal positions on the evening of March 6, Major General Van Dorn realizes immediately that he will not be able to slip past Curtis's flank completely unnoticed. He would have to deal with Curtis first before moving any farther north. Van Dorn decides to take advantage of his superior numbers, the static position of the entrenched Federals, and the terrain itself. The same mountains that provide security to General Curtis's right
It's going to provide cover for them.
flank might also serve to mask Van Dorn's movements to the west. He's further encouraged by a minor skirmish when his advance guard briefly engages and dispatches a small Union detachment under Brigadier General Franz Sigel, second in command of Curtis's army. Van Dorn then determines to bring his force to the rear of the Federal lines, thereby rendering their entrenchments and its advantageous position behind Little Sugar Creek useless. At the same time that McCullough's division is marching to their positions, General Curtis directs his 1st Division commander, Colonel Peter J. Osterhaus, to withdraw 1 brigade of his division from Little Sugar Creek fortifications and head towards the Confederate force reported to be near 12 Corner Church. A steady and reliable officer, the 39-year-old Osterhaus is a good choice for such an independent assignment. Colonel Osterhaus is unknowingly seeking Brigadier General McCullough's marching column of Confederates, which had turned off Bentonville Detour at 12 Corner Church and was now marching around the west side of Big Mountain on the Ford Road. Colonel Osterhaus rides ahead of his infantry in order to familiarize himself with the country atop Pea Ridge. Accompanying him is Colonel Cyrus Bussey and a small mounted force consisting of detachments from the 1st, 4th, and 5th Missouri Cavalry,
A lot of cavalry and a battery.
and the 3rd Iowa Cavalry, in all around 600 men, and 3 guns from the 1st Missouri Flying Artillery Battery.
Oh, they're about to intercept.
On the late morning of March 7, 1862, the Battle of Pea Ridge, or Battle of Elkhorn Tavern, is set to begin at the small hamlet of Leetown.
I could not hesitate in my course of action, Osterhaus says. So he's on the offensive.
At about 11:30
Oh, they got a bunch of cavalry too. I didn't see that. So this is going to be a heavy cavalry fight. We haven't really seen that. We've seen maybe some cavalry skirmishes in the east, but not to this degree, I don't think.
a.m., Colonel Osterhaus and his small escort command emerged from a small piece of woods onto the property of Foster Farm. What Colonel Osterhaus sees ahead of him is a sight to behold. McCullough's entire division of 7,000 Confederates are marching down the road only a few miles away. In the words of Colonel Osterhaus, "I could not hesitate in my course of action." He directs
Maybe start with the battery shot.
Bussey to unlimber his 3 guns from Captain Gustavus N. Elbert's 1st Missouri Flying Artillery and to have them open fire on the tightly packed Confederate marching columns. The opening shots of the fight at Leetown around Foster's Farm strikes down dozens of rebel cavalrymen with shot and shell.
That's what I was thinking right away, and he did that, it seems. Which, when they're tightly packed like that, cavalry's hard to hit. They're scattered, they're moving targets. But this is probably your best shot with the battery.
Now it was McCullough's turn to be surprised. Like General Van Dorn, McCullough believed that the Union forces were still in their fortifications along Little Sugar Creek, awaiting an attack from the south. Both literally and figuratively, McCullough was looking forward to meeting Generals Van Dorn and Price at Elkhorn Tavern, which lay directly ahead of his division. The last thing the former Texas Ranger expects is an attack from his rear. After a few minutes of confusion in the Confederate ranks, McCullough sends Brigadier General James M. McIntosh, his second in command and cavalry brigade commander, along with his 3,000 cavalrymen sweeping across Foster's wheat field toward Osterhaus's position in one of the Civil War's most colorful cavalry charges, shrieking.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, you guys might know, but I'm not sure. This is like my first go through on this. Is there a bigger cavalry battle than what we're seeing right here in the future?
The Comanche war whoop and brandishing carbines, shotguns, pistols, sabers, bowie knives, and hatchets, rebel troopers of the 6th, 9th, and 11th Texas Cavalry Regiments, 1st Texas Cavalry.
3,000 men. So they're like almost 3 to 1. They're definitely 3 to 1. They're like, because then they only have 600 men. McCullough's gonna run through them.
Battalion and 1st Arkansas Cavalry Battalion overwhelmed the small Union advance party. The Confederates scattered the small Union cavalry force and captured the 3 guns from the 1st Missouri Flying Artillery, scoring an initial victory at Foster's Farm. A few hundred yards to the west, Brigadier General Albert Pike's Indian Brigade conforms.
The Indian Brigade? Oh, wow. Interesting.
To McIntosh's movement by ordering his Indians to attack as well. The 1st and 2nd Cherokee Mounted Rifles, some on horseback, others on foot, pick their way through a patch of woods and drive off 2 isolated companies of the 3rd Iowa Cavalry in an ambush. These 2 companies of the 3rd Iowa Cavalry are hit particularly hard by the Indian ambush. Among the dead and dying, Iowans sprawled across the field. The Cherokee troopers take time to scalp, mutilate, and murder 8 of the wounded Federals.
So, that's interesting.
3rd Iowa Cavalry suffers an unusual kill-to-wounded ratio with 24 men killed and 17 wounded. Survivors of the Federal advance party fall back through the belt of trees and race across Oberson's field. The Yankee cavalrymen thunder past Colonel Nicholas Grugel's infantrymen of Osterhaus's 2nd Brigade. which is just now entering the field. As horsemen speed across the gaping infantrymen, some of them shout, turn back, they'll give you hell."
Officers and men, you have it in your power to make or prevent another Bull Run affair. I want every man to stand his post. Colonel Nicholas Gruzel.
For a moment, the blue infantry ranks waver before Colonel Gruzel shouts words of encouragement to lift their spirits. He exclaims that he does not wish to see another Bull Run affair this day and inspires his men to stand at their posts. The reference to the shameful debacle outside Washington only 7 months earlier does the trick, as the rattled infantrymen settle back down and resume their deployment on Oberson's Field. When Colonel Osterhaus arrives a few moments later, he finds Gruzel calmly supervising the formation of the Union line of battle on the south side of Oberson's Field. Immensely relieved, Osterhaus later informs General Curtis that Gruzel's men had stood without flinching, despite the temptation to flee.
Well, they haven't encountered anyone yet. I mean, their artillery might be encountering someone half a mile down the road or something like that. These infantrymen are just chilling.
It is a critical moment in the developing battle around Leetown. Instead of an easy, decisive victory, General McCulloch would soon have a fight on his hands. Osterhaus sends a message to Brigadier General Curtis informing the Army commander that he has engaged a large enemy force north of Leetown and urgently needs reinforcements. At this stage of the battle, the Union force at Leetown consists of the 36th Illinois, 12th Missouri, and the 22nd Indiana.
1,600, okay. Most of them being in the 36th, 12th, and 22nd.
Fewer than 1,600 men, supported by the 4th Independent Battery, Ohio Light Artillery, commanded by Captain Lewis Hoffman and Captain Martin Welfy's Independent Battery, Missouri Light Artillery. Colonel Cyrus Bussey's cavalrymen are in such disarray that they will not be of much help for some time. On the other hand, McCulloch's division consists of just around 7,000 men and 4 batteries of artillery. This is more than enough to sweep the small Union command if handled properly.
Whatever happened to the 3rd Iowa up here? I never saw if they escaped or they were just routed.
Osterhaus has no illusions about his ability to repel a full-scale rebel attack. His only hope is to hold out on Oberson's Field until reinforcements arrive. Osterhaus fires shot and shell into the woods where McCulloch's men are located, routing Pike's Indian Brigade permanently and convincing McCulloch to deal with this federal nuisance.
That's pretty far away, those shots, from if those are infantry shots. I'm not sure how far really that is, but it looks pretty far.
Before moving on to Elkhorn Tavern. Despite the temporary disarray and confusion in his ranks, McCulloch is confident of success as he prepares his men for a general assault against Osterhaus's short blue line on the south side of Oberson's Field. He remarks to his aide, "In 1 hour, they'll be ours." Colonel Lewis Hebert's infantry brigade and McCulloch's division forms a line of battle straddling the Leetown Road. Because the formation is too long and unwieldy for Hebert to personally oversee himself, McCulloch divides the infantry brigade into 2 wings. Hebert personally directs the 4 regiments in the thick woods on the east side of the road, while McCulloch assumes temporary command of the 5 regiments in the well-trampled fields west of the road. The mounted regiments from McIntosh's cavalry brigade, now largely restored to order, take their places behind the infantry brigade.
Reserved, or, just in case.
While Albert Pike struggles without much immediate success to reform the demoralized Cherokees of his Indian Brigade in the woods to the northwest. After talking things over with Colonel Hebert near Leetown Road, McCulloch rides westward along the Confederate line, conferring with subordinates and encouraging the weary soldiers. The infantry formation west of Leetown Road consists of the dismounted 4th Texas Cavalry Battalion, the 1st and 2nd Arkansas Mounted Rifles, also dismounted, and the 16th and 17th Arkansas Infantry Regiments. When he reaches the end of the line, Brigadier General McCulloch notices a bushy gap in the belt of trees and decides to personally observe the federal positions in Oberson's Field for himself. He told his staff, "I will ride forward a little and reconnoiter the enemy's position. You boys remain here," adding, Your gray horses will attract the fire of the sharpshooters. McCullough had developed a habit of personal reconnaissance during his years with the Texas Rangers.
That's interesting.
These scouting techniques had served him well in Mexico and on the Great Plains. But this day at Pea Ridge and Leetown would prove fatal for the Texan.
Oh, he's gonna get shot, isn't he?
Osterhaus has no sharpshooters in his command, but Gruschel had sent 2 companies of the 36th Illinois across Oberson's Field to form an advanced skirmish line. The Illinois soldiers spread out along a split-rail fence that ran along the north side of the field and marked the southern edge of the belt of trees. Nervous about being so far out in front of the main Union line, the infantrymen peer into the woods ahead, alert for any sign of rebel activity. After a few minutes, the Union soldiers on the west end of the skirmish line spot a horseman riding in their direction through a bushy gap in the trees. Clad in a black suit and mounted on a tall horse, McCullough is sharply outlined against a wintry blue sky. Dozens of Union soldiers steady their rifles on the fence and fire a ragged musket volley into the general.
What was he thinking? He was thinking that, like, at least get a bodyguard with something, man. That was just, I don't know, man. He was just testing the waters a little too much.
McCullough tumbles from the saddle, killed by a bullet through the heart, credited with being fired by Private Peter Pelican of Company B, 36th Illinois.
It's crazy they know who shot that, or who claimed to shot that.
Because of the brown foliage that clings to the trees at the end of the winter, no one in the rebel ranks see their division commander fall.
So they're still oh no, oh, this is horrible. Oh, they had such a good shot too. Poor guys.
For nearly an hour, the entire Confederate force at Leetown remains immobile, awaiting orders from their division commander to advance on the outnumbered Yankees. But orders never come. To the officers and men in the Confederate lines, McCullough seems to have vanished into thin air. His fate remains unknown until mid-afternoon, when soldiers of the 16th Arkansas advance to the belt of trees to drive off the Union skirmishers and stumble across his body. Command of McCullough's division belatedly passes to Brigadier General James M. McIntosh, who orders that division's general assault begin. Instead of remaining in the rear as befitted a division commander, General McIntosh impulsively decides to go into the fight with his old regiment he had led at Wilson's Creek.
Alright. Better than just go scouting way ahead of everybody, I guess.
The 2nd Arkansas Mounted Rifles. But the Arkansans were dismounted and serving as infantry now, and as they slowly pick their way through the belt of trees, McIntosh grows impatient and gallops forward atop his steed.
Oh, we just saw a commanding officer go ahead of everyone and die. You're gonna do the same.
A short time earlier, Colonel Gruschel had led the main body of the 36th Illinois halfway across Oberson's Field to recover the 2 detached companies of skirmishers, who were now engaged in a firefight with the 16th Arkansas. When Colonel Gruschel spots the 2nd Arkansas Mounted Rifles, with General McIntosh out in front, emerging from the belt of trees just to the east of the 16th Arkansas, he directs the 36th Illinois to shift their fire to this new target. 700 Union muskets and rifles roar a deadly volley, and McIntosh topples over from his horse, struck by a bullet through the heart.
We literally just saw this movie. I swear, if the next guy does the same thing, I don't even know, man. Like, can we not learn from our people that fell before us?
He had fallen just 200 yards east of the spot where McCullough had shared the same fate.
MC starts with your name, same. Oh man.
The loss of both McCullough and McIntosh causes the abortive Confederate infantry assault west of Leetown to sputter out of momentum. Most regiments had not moved an inch.
And this is all through the 36 Illinois too. The 36 Illinois is like carrying this battle.
The few that had started forward into the belt of trees and disappeared, such as the 16th Arkansas and the 2nd Arkansas Mounted Rifles, soon waver and then fall back to their initial starting position on Foster's farm. After the rebels fade back into the belt of trees and disappear from sight, the 36th Illinois waits uncertainly in Oberson's Field, just out in front of the other federal regiments. When nothing happens, a mystified Grusel leads the Illinoisans back to their original positions south of Oberstdorf to await deployments. Meanwhile, Colonel Louis Hebert's wing of the Confederate infantry line of battle, consisting of the 4th, 14th, and 15th Arkansas and the 3rd Louisiana, is deployed east of Leetown Road in a forested area known as Morgan's Woods. Colonel Hebert never learns that McCulloch and McIntosh are dead and that
Y'all don't have intelligence. No one tells anyone anything. Come on.
he is now the senior ranking officer in the division. When he heard the sporadic firing to the west that felled his superiors, he assumed it marked the beginning of the general assault that he and McCulloch had discussed. Hebert waits in vain for the orders to advance from his division commander. Determined to strike a blow, he finally decides to go forward on his own initiative and leads his 4 regiments south through Morgan's Woods. Unable to see any distance ahead due to the heavy woods, the Confederates unknowingly marched directly towards the exposed right flank of Colonel Osterhaus's short line, which does not exceed east of Leetown Road.
So this must be really heavy forested then.
Confusion and delay occasioned by the deaths of McCulloch and McIntosh allows the Union defenders just enough time to blunt Hebert's attack. When Brigadier General Curtis receives Osterhaus's message at his headquarters begging for reinforcements and support, he dispatches Colonel Jefferson C. Davis's 3rd Division to the scene. Jefferson C. Davis, at age 33 and of no relation to Confederate President Jefferson Davis, is a capable West Pointer who is perhaps best known for his memorable name and for murdering another Union general in a personal dispute a few months after Pea Ridge. Davis pulls his 3rd Division troops out of their fortifications along Little Sugar Creek and reaches Osterhaus's position with 3 Illinois and Indiana regiments, about 1,400 men, and Battery A, 2nd Illinois Light Artillery. As a Union band incredibly plays the tune of Dixie, the infantry from Colonel Davis's 2 brigades hurry into Morgan's Woods on the east side of Leetown Road. The new regiments extend the Union line directly across Colonel Hebert's path. Colonel Julius White's 2nd Brigade, composed of the 37th and 59th Illinois, is first into line, so Davis sends it forward to locate the enemy. Neither Davis nor White realize that the 2 Illinois regiments are on a collision course with Hebert's much larger force.
So they have no idea that they're just walking towards each other, which is scary. That's a scary time. Suddenly something like a tremendous peal of thunder then across the front. Musket fire just going crazy probably.
Hebert's rebels and White's Yankees plow blindly into one another in Morgan's Woods and open fire with volleys at extremely close, sometimes point-blank range. Staggered by the shock, both lines ground to a halt and intense firefight erupts in the tangled woods. Soldiers on both sides lay down to avoid the deadly close-range fire. Parade ground maneuvers and fancy tactics count for little in such a brutal point-blank fight. As regimental formations and lines break down on both sides, the struggle degenerates into firefights between company-sized groups stumbling around in the smoky wilderness. Colonel Hebert's men have the advantage in numbers, and they gradually push White's Illinoisans back. At one point in the contest, 100 or more soldiers from the 3rd Louisiana and 4th Arkansas become separated from their units and emerge from the western edge of Morgan's Woods.
Oh, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that doesn't look like a good thing to me.
Spying Battery A of the 2nd Illinois Light Artillery in the southeast corner of Oberstdorf, only 100 yards away, they surge across Leetown Road toward the Union guns in a disorganized mass. The Confederates are momentarily brought to a halt by a single man, Captain William P. Black of the 37th Illinois, who stands in front of the imperiled battery and blasts away with a Colt repeating rifle until he is wounded. Captain Black's remarkable act gives the artillerymen time to save 4 of their 6 guns, and his singular heroism will earn him the Congressional Medal of Honor. The Confederates swarm over the 2 remaining guns, and for a moment, it seems as though Hebert has achieved a breakthrough. But then, Osterhaus's regiments on the west side of the imperiled Union battery comes to the rescue.
They're here comes the 36 Illinois, and we already know they've took 2 commanding officers down.
The 36th Illinois and the 12th Missouri wheel about into Oberson's Field and drive the rebels away from the federal guns. Colonel Hebert's men sprint across Leetown Road under a hell of fire and plunge back into Morgan's Woods. Shortly before the Confederates made their sideways lunge into Oberson's Field, Davis sent Colonel Thomas Pattison's 1st Brigade, consisting of the 18th and 22nd Indiana, now reattached from Osterhaus, around the left flank of Hebert's formation. Pattison is slow to get into position,
I would be worried with all these woods with friendly fire.
and his counterattack is hampered by poor visibility in the woods. Navigating by compass, the Indianans form a line of battle facing west and move forward until they encounter the rebel flank. Surprised by the unexpected appearance of the Yankees, who seemed to come out of nowhere, the soldiers of the 14th and 15th Arkansas nevertheless managed to change front to their left. They put up a stiff defense amid this tangle of trees and vines, and fight the 2 Indiana regiments to a standstill. Lieutenant Colonel John A. Hendricks of the 22nd Indiana is killed during this encounter. During the chaotic moments when the Confederates struggled to meet Pattison's flank attack, Lewis Hebert and Colonel William C. Mitchell of the 14th Arkansas become disoriented in the Smoky Woods and drift away from their own men. About the same time, Colonel William F. Tunnard
Why is he going all the way to their line?
of the 3rd Louisiana collapses from exhaustion. All 3 officers are captured by the Federals. Colonel Hebert's loss is a particularly telling blow to the rebels, for it effectively completes the decapitation of McCullough's division and leaves it leaderless and dysfunctional.
Yeah, like what a ultimate failure this has been for the CSA.
The combination of stiffening Union resistance in the front and flank and the loss of 3 key senior officers brings Hebert's bold attack to an end. Exhausted, disoriented, and out of ammunition, the Arkansas and Louisiana troops give up the fight and stream to the rear through the darkening forest. Upon reaching Foster's Farm, they are disgusted to discover that 2/3 of McCullough's division had stood idle during their desperate struggle in Morgan's Woods.
I mean, they have no leader. They don't really know what to do.
Not a single Confederate regimental commander west of Leetown Road had demonstrated any initiative during the most critical phase of the battle. The failure of Hebert's unsupported attack and the capture of Colonel Hebert himself are the final blows to the ill-starred Confederate effort at Leetown.
We might as well just get captured at this point.
By 4 p.m., the fighting around Leetown had sputtered out, except for intermittent artillery fire. Leaderless and listless, the officers and men of McCullough's division mill around in the lengthening shadows and wait for someone to tell them what to do. After some time, Brigadier General Albert Pike attempts to assume command, but many of McCullough's officers refuse to acknowledge his authority. The fight at Leetown was over, but the Battle of Pea Ridge was only just getting started. Further east, the rest of Major General Earl Van Dorn's Army of the West, including Major General Sterling Price's division, were priming for an attack on the Union positions around Elkhorn Tavern.
And that's what we'll get you guys next time. Wow, what a horrible beginning. I mean, this is part 1, Battle before Missouri, and then I guess there'll be a second part of Battle of Pea Ridge. Might be the same day. It looks like it might be the same day, just a different front. This is telling the front near the Foster Farm and over there in the Morgan Woods. Dense wooded area, hard to see. Can you imagine if they still had uniform issues? That would have been horrendous here in friendly fire. I'm sure friendly fire still happened given the unwavering confusion that continued. The craziness of, McCullough, McIntosh both falling early, and then Hubert, or whatever his name is, go back. I don't want to butcher it too bad. Hebert. He gets captured, so he's not technically dead, but he's a casualty because he's captured. This like little push in the woods was pretty much the only thing that worked for the CSA, as well as like the initial attack. Forgot who led that attack, but initial attack where they did capture a gun or maybe a few guns, but just a horrendous, awful time on the left side here. So we'll have to see what happens in the part 2 of Pea Ridge. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you guys will be notified when that releases. I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day. Peace out. Bye bye.